let's be honest, it's been difficult to do anything this month other than play Elden Ring. But I powered through, and today I'm bringing you the very first Video Game Therapy's Indie Smash or Pass. I'm forever on the hunt for gems of the indie underworld, so I play a lot of them. Most of them are average, a lot of them are molten dog shit, but some of them are worth your time. And some of them are underrated masterpieces. If you know, you know. Anyway, I thought since I play so many of them, why not save you guys the hassle and just give you the lowdown right here on which new indie games are worth your time and which ones are absolutely not. So here it is, the first episode of Video Game Therapy's Indie Smash or Pass. Yeah, bang on balls. You heard that correctly. I'm going to be totally honest with you here. Knowing the game was called Bang on Balls Chronicles, as I was punching the review code into my Steam, I didn't do it with much haste or excitement. I mean, it's called Bang on Balls Chronicles, for fuck's sake. Well, contrary to what the name suggests, you won't find this game listed under Steam's NSFW section. In fact, quite the opposite. Bang on Balls Chronicles is a colourful, comical and charming 3D platformer. The game follows the old school classic system of having an overworld hub with portals where you travel to different levels, each with a different theme. The game has been heavily influenced by 3D platformers like Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie and Spyro the Dragon, but none more so, in my opinion, than Gex 3D, Enter the Gecko. I mean, you literally travel to your levels by jumping through a TV screen, exactly like Gex 3D. Anyway, like all those games, the levels are non-linear and objectives are focused on exploring the environment and completing objectives. The levels are as comical as they are charming, if not kind of random and lacking any real context. Why am I collecting movie reels and travelling through portals on TV screens to get to different levels based on different historical events set in different times? Wouldn't it have made more sense for the portals to be clocks and you collect watches or clock pieces or something? Trivial as it may seem, I bring it up because that kind of undercooked thinking and lack of proper consideration is commonplace throughout this game. From small unimportant considerations like the one that I just talked about, right through to the build of the game itself. Yet, this game has all the hallmarks and ingredients of a fantastic 3D platformer, but unfortunately it's just not put together very well. The game, on PC anyway, where I played it, is really poorly optimised. This game, on maximum settings, runs like I'm trying to play Red Dead Redemption 2 on the fucking Nintendo Switch. The frame rates are poor, the animations are jittery, and in moments of busy gameplay such as explosions and combat, the game is literally unplayable. However, knock it down to medium settings and the game runs much smoother. Once you find the patience to fiddle with your settings till the game runs well, and you persevere with the game's general haphazardness, Bang on Balls Chronicles is actually jam-packed with moments of sheer brilliance. You see, the levels on this game are incredible, both thematically and in terms of gameplay. The maps are open and sprawling, yet cleverly divided into sections that contain enemies and puzzles that you have to defeat before you can progress to your final objective. There are mini bosses, and at the end of each level, once your objectives are complete, there's the main boss. And these bosses are just fantastic. There are weapons and cosmetics to collect, and there's even a multiplayer with its own unique set of challenges. And if that wasn't enough, there's even some quirky minigames that you can dive into there based on some arcade classics from eras gone by. In the end, I actually had a wonderful time playing Bang on Balls Chronicles, and as it came at the end of my 8 or so hour journey with it, I felt the same joyous feeling that I've had with some of my favourite 3D platformers of all time. That was a right adventure. However, despite the loving care and the best intentions of exit plan games, I had to wade through some pretty off-putting waters before I cracked the shell to reveal the gem that was hidden inside, and I fear that many who do try this game will be less patient and less forgiving of its flaws. If I had the chance to say just a few sentences to the developers of this game, they would be: take yourself more seriously. You have some fantastic ideas and level design to rival some of the best in the genre, yet the lovable charm of the game is juxtaposed by odd decisions like the title of the game, or the lack of a strong concept and main character, and unfortunately the poor optimization, which I guess hopefully you'll work out. Watching the trailer and reading the descriptions of the game, there's an air of don't take us too seriously, this is just a bit of fun. Yet the brilliance of the themes, the level design and the bosses just scream for this game to be one that does take itself more seriously, and one that delivers a well-rounded experience for its players. And for a game about balls, well-rounded is exactly what it should be. As I sit sifting through the coming soon section on Metacritic, one game keeps finding its way into my eyeline. El Gancho. Despite my attempts to ignore it as if by magic, a review code pops into my inbox. I glance over the trailer for this game and I was immediately intrigued. A gorgeous retro aesthetic is one surefire way to get me excited, but that excitement turned into genuine desire after watching the wonderfully pixel animated main character swing through an array of vibrant levels using what looked to be precision fast-paced platforming with a focus on outmaneuvering enemies, obstacles and environmental hazards. And what's that? The game is procedurally generated, so potentially endless fun with no two playthroughs the same. I think about my time with Celeste with a wonderful story and beautiful pixel art, a soundtrack to rival the best ever made, and most important of all, the most satisfying and precise platforming mechanics in any 2D platformer to date. I remind myself how genuinely sad I felt that Celeste had to end and how I wished that I had something similar to tide me over until the next installment from the Celeste developers. Could El Gancho be that wish? Well, as the old adage goes, be careful what you wish for. El Gancho is an arcade-style action platforming game. This game is exceptionally easy on the eye. Well, if beautifully nostalgic pixel art aesthetics are your thing anyway. Created by Spanish developers Sigil Games and published by East Asiasoft, El Gancho is the next game in the Task Force Campus universe. The story is just barely a story. Thin. And whilst I did hope there was more to the story, this kind of thing is commonplace in this type of game because they usually tend to do their talking through the gameplay. So let's look at the actual gameplay. The main feature of this game is your laser hook. You can also jump and shoot in El Gancho, but these are secondary and just used to get yourself out of tight spots. The main way of dealing damage to enemies is by using your character's trail. As you swing, your Coco leaves behind a trail, and when this trail touches enemies, it hurts them. And hearing that, you might be nodding your head and thinking, okay, that makes sense. However, controlling that mechanic in game is an entirely different story. It feels very awkward and imprecise because your trail is behind you, so it follows your trajectory. Yet you're supposed to be using it to kill enemies. So you avoid enemies by jumping over them or swinging around them, and by proxy your trail follows you, meaning that most of the time your trail will miss the enemies. It's an uncomfortable mechanic, and to be honest it's more frustrating than it is fun. The laser hook, you know, the thing that's supposed to be the main selling point of this game, isn't any better. For a game based around the swinging mechanic, the laser hook feels counterintuitive. It's incredibly clunky and lacks the smooth motion needed to tackle the level design in the game. As you progress through the levels, they become increasingly more fast-paced and require an ever-increasing amount of platform precision. A level of precision that's next to impossible to deliver using the tools that the game gives you to do so. To add insult to injury, the layout of the controls is a decision I can safely say was made at 2 AM at the Sigil Games Christmas party. The game plays using twin sticks, one to move and the other to aim your hook. Then you need to press and hold the right shoulder button to fire the hook. That's 3 different actions you need to take on the controller to perform the simplest of move on the game. This same mechanic could have been done using a single stick and a single button press to fire the hook. As if all of the above wasn't enough to make the veins pop out of your skin as blood filled with undiluted frustration beats around your body. The game is a procedurally generated roguelike. And what that means is when you die, and you will, a lot, then you restart from the beginning of the game, right from the beginning. And when you do, all the levels have changed. They look different now. To be honest, procedural generation is something I'm a big fan of, but for it to be enjoyable, the gameplay needs to be tight and very well put together. The reason being is that if the game world and levels are ever changing, then the mechanics need to be the thing that upholds the value of the game's playability. I.e., no matter what level the procedural generation spits out, the game should always still be fun to play. But this isn't the case here. The algorithm's too random, the parameters are too open. It means that some levels are far too spacious, lacking enough well-placed blocks for you to grapple from to keep your movement consistency going, and others are far too cluttered, which reduced the traversal speed that the game demands. I always feel a small amount of guilt when I roast an indie title. I mean, these are small studios, they're just trying to do their thing. Don't get me wrong, the aesthetics of El Gancho are wonderful, and the music is annoyingly addictive, but unfortunately, that's about where it ends. It should have been a classic, addictive, die and retry style game. The reality, however, is slow, clunky, frustrating, and unbalanced gameplay. The mechanics feel like they belong in a game like Spelunky, but the environments play like they belong in Super Meat Boy. The game has plenty of enemy scrubs and 6 bosses for you to take on, but regrettably, the most difficult enemy you'll have to face are the controls themselves. I wanted to enjoy this game, I really did, but unfortunately, El Gancho is a swing and a miss. Immersion, stealth, and horror. Live, laugh, love. Blood West is a brand new first-person shooter that's just entered early access this month. The art style looks incredible, the game sounds fantastic, so I had to give this one a try. Blood West describes itself as an immersive Wild West first-person shooter. You play as a reverent desperado who takes on twisted demons and eldritch horrors on the journey to rid yourself of the curse that you've been placed under. Stuck between life and death after being resurrected by the Totem of Souls, you will find yourself traversing your way through a sexy looking pixelated Wild West themed world of horrors, avoiding and stalking prey and collecting cursed items to trade for a peaceful death. The thing is, Blood West isn't exactly what it says on the tin. Have you ever had a microwavable lasagna? And on the box it looks like an exquisite piece of Italian cuisine, but then when you dish it out onto your plate, it's just barely recognisable as a lasagna at all. Well, Blood West is a bit like that. It's marketed as being a game based on immersion, stealth and horror. Immersive? Yeah, it has its moments, but a quick search for a definition of video game immersion will tell you that immersion is achieved through a combination of good game flow, fully developed storylines, and extreme realism made possible by cutting-edge graphics. Now, we can let them off the cutting-edge graphics because, you know, we're dealing with an indie game here, but the other two are pretty severely undercooked. Stealth? It'd be a lie to say that stealth didn't play a big part in this game, but again, a microwaved lasagna is still a lasagna, just not the one on the box. The stealth mechanics are at best a slim representation of what you'd expect to see from a stealth-based game in 2022. There's a sound meter that displays how much enemies can hear you, but they never ever think to check up on that said noise until the meter is ridiculously full. So as long as you aren't directly in their field of view and you stand still, the sound meter will deplete, and it makes for a very plain and easy experience when trying to stay undetected. The AI are also incredibly fucking thick, and clearly still a work in progress. For example, I can sneak up on an enemy who can clearly hear the pitter-patter of my soft footsteps approaching them. I can then take out that enemy, absolutely fucking obliterate him. Yet the enemy just a few meters away won't be alerted by the sound of my shotgun, won't be alerted by the sound of his co-worker's head popping like a water balloon filled with shower gel. This guy clearly is hard of hearing. Yet as I approach that enemy, the sound meter will tell me that they can then hear the pitter-patter of my soft footsteps. And finally, horror? No. Calling this game a horror is the same as calling Doom a horror. Yes, the game is set in a hellscape, there's blood, there's guts, but is it a scary game? No, it won't keep you up at night. That being said, if you look past what the game says it is to what it actually is, what you'll find is more like an action RPG, and thankfully, it's not a bad one. Now, it's worth noting that obviously it's in early access, so the developers have announced that there are 2 more open world areas or 2 more open world levels to come. But in its current form, you can only play sort of the first world, the first area. I'm repeating myself. Okay, let's move on. So what you can play is set in a large open world area, and to progress through the game, you take on quests and side quests. Doing so will gain your character XP, which can be exchanged for skills and abilities that affect gameplay. You know, exactly like an RPG game. As you play through the campaign, you'll have to manage your inventory, and as you progress, you'll acquire better equipment through means of looting, exploration, and trading. You know, exactly like an RPG. Now, there's something about this game that makes you want to pick up weapons and just fly into combat, all guns blazing. Taking that approach in Blood West won't end well for you. Enemies that are aware of your presence move really erratically and make it really difficult to hit them. They're also really fucking spongy, so they take a lot of damage before they stay down. You need to take time with the shooting on this game. You need to pick your battles wisely. You need to consider your approach and distance to give yourself enough time to take down the enemy, or give yourself enough chance to reload during combat. To summarise then, Blood West is a decent first step for developers Hyper Strange. I had some good moments, I had some bad moments. The problem is, the game is experiencing an identity crisis. The game would be much better represented as an action RPG rather than a stealth FPS shooter. There are a few good moments and some decent game mechanics that lay down a decent foundation for the proper release, but in its current form, the game is more like a long demo. You won't find a polished experience yet playing Blood West, but there's still some fun moments to be had for sure. But for that reason, I'm going to give Blood West a pass for now. I will definitely keep an eye on Blood West, and when it does get its full release, I'll revisit it and maybe feature it on another episode, and we can see if we can bump it up to a smash. Remember when games were hard? Like actually hard. I don't mean like Souls hard, where enemies are obnoxiously OP and the game's mechanics are specifically designed to continuously throw you into harm's way. I'm talking about old school hard, where you had absolutely no fucking clue where it was you were supposed to be going or what it is you were supposed to be doing, and the game didn't give a single shit. These types of games are a rare breed these days, and when I say rare breed, I mean Tunic is the first one that I've played in as long as I can remember. Tunic will make you feel like a modern gamer in retro rehab. Cold sweats and itching just to take a peep at a YouTube video to help you figure out what to do next, but if you succumb to the temptation, Tunic will lose some of its charm, as accumulating knowledge to figure out the path forward is instrumental to the thrill. Anyway, I'm getting excited, I've jumped the gun a little bit. What is Tunic? Tunic is an isometric adventure puzzle game that's really difficult not to compare to the Legend of Zelda titles. It's called Tunic. The tunic's green. You have a sword and shield, a blue shield. You solve puzzles and complete dungeons, you take on bosses and unlock new items that allow you to access new areas. To say this game isn't heavily inspired by Zelda games is a bit like saying Kung Fu Panda Showdown of Legendary Legends wasn't inspired by Smash Bros. Tunic's world is introduced to you with little context. You're a fox who wakes up on the shore of an island. You can run, you can roll, that's it. You'll soon find a stick to hit enemies with and a mysterious older fox trapped inside a glowing orb who you are presumably to rescue, although, as I stated earlier, the game won't tell you this. The game shines through its exploration of the world and the absolutely incredible manual mechanic. So as you progress through the game, you'll find pages of what appear to be an old school video game manual that are filled with information, tips, tricks, maps and like clues about how to progress through the game. Yet they're inscribed in an unknown language with small sections of English thrown in here and there. Deciphering the manual at first can feel irritated and like an outdated hurdle, but as you chip away at the game and discover more of the manual, this soon becomes the backbone of the game that elevates Tunic way above other similar titles. The feeling of decoding a mystery and applying it to the actual game world is immensely satisfying and incredibly addictive. It means you're always motivated to seek out secret nooks and pathways to cash in on whatever rewards lie in their wake, especially in late game when the bosses become extremely tough to conquer. Honestly, I have virtually nothing bad to say about Tunic. If I was forced to try and think of something, it'd be that whilst the game isn't secretive about how much it leans into its Zelda inspiration, a lot of the items that you discover on your adventure are just reskins of classic Zelda items. If the same innovation and thought that was put into the manual mechanic was put into that department, I honestly feel like we could have a Game of the Year contender here. And you know what, it still might be, depending on the caliber of games that we get in the rest of the year. Anyway, as you might have guessed, Tunic is a stone wall smash. You have to try this game, and if you have Xbox Game Pass, it's available to play right now on there for free. It's also available on Steam. There it is, Indie Smash or Pass, the first one down. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Thank you for the continued support. If there are any indie games that you know of coming out in the next month or so that you'd like me to try, let me know in the comments below and I'll try get hold of them, and hopefully they'll feature on an episode. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.